This is one of those things where I don't really know if it's actively getting worse. As in, we have ourselves a period a week ago where the situation is like this, and a week later, today, it's worse than it was before, or if it's just the insiders like Elliotte Friedman going on to the 31 Thoughts podcast, as well as the Instigators show, revealing more information which makes it appear worse than we thought it had been. We're making another video here about Jack Eichel, and I know it's like not even a week since we made the last one, but last time we spoke about Jack Eichel and gave another update to his entire trading situation. But earlier yesterday, we had ourselves Elliotte Friedman make 2 podcast appearances, one of which was on his own podcast, the 31 Thoughts podcast, and he expanded a little bit more on the Eichel neck surgery thing, and how exactly that's playing into this entire off-season situation that the Sabres are dealing with. So, we're going over Jack Eichel, captain of the Buffalo Sabres, once more. If you hadn't been aware, he injured his neck earlier this season, and despite the fact that he is one of the top American players in the NHL today, and a young boding star who is probably going to be a lot better later in the future than he is today, which is kind of crazy because he's already really good, he missed a very, very good chunk of the year. And in fact, it's to a point now where he is considering getting the surgery that in which no NHL player has ever received before, and that in which the likelihood of fully recovering is not 100% guaranteed. We'll just put it like that. There's reason for concern here for the Buffalo Sabres for their star player going through this neck surgery that he really wants to get, but is not completely 100% guaranteed to having a positive outcome for his impact as a hockey player. That's the most layman's terms, kind of euphemistic way I can put it. I don't want to bore you with all the medical details and whatnot, but this conflict between the Sabres party, where they're saying, no, don't do this, don't do it, and Jack Eichel being like, yeah, well, I want to get the surgery. It's been going on for a while now. And yesterday on the 31 Thoughts podcast and the Instigator show, Elliotte Friedman gave some insight. We'll go over some tweets that go over Friedman's comments on both the Instigator show, which is a segment on WGR 550 Sports Radio in Buffalo. Leave a link in the description, by the way, to the podcast version of that show, as well as the 31 Thoughts podcast, too. I'm reading these tweets in an order that really makes a nice narrative in a video format. So let's just go ahead and highlight the deal here. Friedman, on the Instigator show regarding Eichel's neck injury, said that he has heard the Sabres have gone to the NHL, asking what their rights are. And Friedman has also heard that Eichel, or his agent, have gone to the Players Association to determine what their rights are. Pretty much, because they're so conflicted as to what Eichel should do with his own body, now you have both of these parties going to the NHL and the NHLPA specifically to really lay out the terms as to where they can go in this conflict. What rights does Eichel have in talking about his own body and going through with the surgery processes that he wants to go through? What rights do the Sabres have in stopping Eichel from doing that because they're afraid of the potential damages? It's honestly feeling like it's getting worse with more information that's getting revealed here. We had the entire layman's terms basic outline of this conflict going on a few weeks ago, but now that the NHL and the NHLPA are getting involved, yeah, that doesn't really rub me the right way, you know? Friedman also said this, now that we know who is picking where, how much do the trade talks for Eichel pick up? I would suspect they're going to pick up quite a bit. And no kidding. You have yourselves a guy who is quite literally one of the top young players in the league, not really having a whole bunch of certainty with his own NHL team. There's conflict here. And as a result, it would be so easy for other NHL GMs to look at that and say, okay, that's a guy that I think we could probably take off the Sabres' hands. He's giving them some trouble, plus he's a really good player. Why don't we try to get that guy? And so we go on to the 31 Thoughts podcast, where Friedman expands a little bit more about Eichel and the entire situation. Adams has confirmed, the Sabres general manager Kevin Adams, that they're still not comfortable with Jack Eichel's surgery process. Friedman responds, whatever Eichel decides to do, it's going to be in conjunction with the next team that acquires him. Okay, yeah, he's kind of laying it out there on the line. He's probably going to get traded sometime soon. Expanding a little bit more, he says that it's clear there is a lack of trust between Eichel and the Sabres right now. Again, this is me talking. Nobody is telling me this, Friedman says. I wonder if this is a deal that happens sooner rather than later for that reason. He's insinuating the idea that because there's this overall disagreement with the entire situation regarding Jack Eichel and his ability to potentially play hockey and his ability to recover from this neck problem that he has, it might be the fuel that leads to a quicker trade sometime down the line. Friedman also said this: "It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Sabres' answer to this is to just potentially punt the situation to another team." Okay, punt the situation. NHL Watcher on Twitter, he's the guy that made the tweets talking about all this stuff. He's a great follow. Love this Twitter account right here. He was getting a real big kick out of that phrase that Friedman used. Punt the situation. Imagine that, eh? You've got your health struggles, you've got yourselves this surgery that you want to do, but your work, your employment is not letting you do it. And now you have the insiders, the analysts who discuss you and your performance at work. They're talking about it like it's a football, like your problems are an inanimate object that you can just throw over to somebody else. Oh, maybe the Sabres would just want to punt this situation to whichever other NHL team would be willing to deal with it. Ah, man, I said this is kind of getting worse, right? It kind of feels like it. Here's another tweet talking about Friedman. He says that any team that acquires Jack Eichel has to be cool with how he handles the injury. However, Friedman also mentioned teams are asking if Eichel gets traded, is he willing to bend his desires to a new team because he wants to make a good impression? And you know, that's something that I didn't really think about at first. Okay, if Jack Eichel gets traded to, let's say, the New York Rangers, just picking a name out of a hat there, totally nothing connected with the Rangers so far. If he goes to the Rangers, is it easier for Jack Eichel to trust them and say, okay, you know, you guys don't want me to get this surgery because you guys don't want me to, and because you're my new team, and because I want to make a good impression, I'm just going to not do it. How about that? Honestly, I don't know. I really don't think that Jack Eichel is that kind of guy who would go out there and try to save face in a brand new relationship by stopping what it is that he actually wants to do. If he has been so adamant on getting this surgery in Buffalo, I personally don't know how easily swayed he would be into not taking the surgery just because he's on a new team and he wants to make a good impression. I don't really think it would work like that for somebody with Jack Eichel's kind of personality, you know? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about that entire idea? But when it comes to NHL surgeries and teams not really being on board, Friedman has one more thing that I wanted to read out here that I think kind of seals the entire deal as to what we should conclude. Friedman mentioned how the Oilers were not comfortable with how Connor McDavid handled his knee injury the other year, but they put trust in McDavid's people. For Sidney Crosby, when he was dealing with those concussions a few years ago, he did a lot of things with the chiropractors that the medical professionals of the Pittsburgh Penguins did not like. And this is kind of where you take your conversation if you discuss whether or not it would be more appropriate for Eichel to go through with the surgery that he is so adamant that he wants to do. We remember the Connor McDavid thing. We made a video about that a few months ago. Was it a year ago? I forgot. But the entire thing with McDavid was, by the time he was fully recovered and he came back and he was still like the best player in the world, when we got all the updates about what actually happened in his rehab process, we learned that Connor McDavid wasn't guaranteed to coming back in the way that we know Connor McDavid could play. Due to the magnitude of his injury and the uncertainty of the procedures that he went and did, we didn't know if Connor McDavid would ever be Connor McDavid again. It's just, we were only revealed to that information after he came back because, you know, if that was leaked to the media while he was in the middle of recovery, imagine how much the hockey world would have imploded then. For Sidney Crosby, he did his own thing with his own party that the Pittsburgh Penguins medical staff didn't like, and guess what happened afterwards? Crosby came back from concussions and was still one of the best players in the world. So when it comes to the top-of-the-line stars with injuries that their teams don't know how to go out there and confront, previous history says that just letting the player do what it is that he wants to do, with, of course, the advisory from his own party, it's not such a bad idea. So we'll see if Jack Eichel does get that surgery. Again, it's completely different from anything any NHL athlete has ever done before. Nobody has had this surgery done and, actually had an NHL career afterwards. So we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes down. I can't believe we made it to 10 minutes off of this weird topic. Talk to me in the comments what you thought about Buffalo and their entire handling of this Eichel injury neck surgery thing. I hope you enjoyed this bit of Rolls 99. And bye.